Hey everyone, welcome to Afterwards. I'm going to talk about the session that I just finished running for Rasper in the Ranch Timeline, episode 5. So this episode was something that we haven't really had the party head to deal with that much, which is failure. And it was, so one of the beauties of being in this alternate timeline is that we can sort of have a little bit, the party being split meant that I could throw some big, heavy, like, save or die kind of things, like the being banished or the Banshee Whale, and I wasn't going to just wipe the whole story by doing it, that's always the fear, like, Whale, the Banshee, if they're all there and they all failed their saves, then, well, they're all dead. So it's like, oh shit, what do we do now? So, another question then to another thing to the other example is Ka. He had sort of a save or die thing today, where he was. That's a good title, actually. Save or die. I'm going to write that down. Another thing was Ka having to make a wisdom save or be banished. We've seen Vel use that to his advantage when he was banishing procurers earlier, and of course these guys do count as extraplanar because they are on a different plane than their own. So they're being banished to their home plane, and so that'll be sort of interesting to see how that goes. There was a little bit. I feel I'll just sort of touch the not the elephant in the room, but because I just used that in questions, comments, concerned. Stephen, get it together. Pamela and Josh didn't get a lot of screen time this session. That probably worked out for the best. Pamela was feeling a little bit sick, and it sort of gave Jamie and Vel and Cosser more of a chance to do their thing well, because we'll certainly be seeing Christine and Rasper doing their fighting thing well pretty soon. So I really, I feel a little bit bad. I tried to give them some scenes, but I was really just trying to like march through this session because I wrote down everything we wanted to do, which the party was like, it took us like 35 minutes today to get to the meat of things. So I gotta talk about that maybe next time, because there was a lot of like startup, like, okay, we're gonna go to the house and we're gonna figure out where to leave the shop, and we're gonna, like scry on some people. I'm sort of getting my timelines a little bit confused just with Ka. For anyone who is confused about what happened there at the end with Tori Oscillac's and Jamie, he essentially he's like sort of setting up shop there, so he finds them. I think the ghost, once they're unconscious, just kind of goes away. I don't know if it's really interested in killing them or if it knows the difference between unconscious or killing. But Tori Oscillax sort of picks them up, gets them out of there, moves them to the tower to hide them, because this Oscillax is not from the ranch timeline nor from our timeline. He's from a third unnamed timeline where he and Vel, just like in our show, did battle in the streets of Nod, but they at some point didn't. It turned out differently, where instead of Oscillax being defeated, Vel was the one who was defeated. So instead of Vel wearing Oscillax's coat, Oscillax wears Vel's coat. So it's a complete, it's a reversal of that. When I was thinking about how to do Tori Oscillax in the ranch timeline, it's like, okay, so how does him being selfish, how does that make it interesting? It's like, am I just throwing him in as a bad guy, or is there something more interesting here? Because obviously Vel still has this, sort of has this chance, or sort of wishes he had the chance to maybe befriend Oscillax, because he really respected him as a magic user, and is sort of the only person who has sort of rivaled Vel in power. And I thought it would be really interesting, since we're sort of doing Mirror World, to sort of maybe show Oscillax in a light where he feels the same way from the same set of circumstances. So that's why we have the third timeline, because one, like, just because these guys have changed planes doesn't mean someone else can't. And perhaps Tori Oscillax is the one who has done that from the other world, because he's sort of Vel's mirror in a lot of ways. Sort of thematically, and now here in the ranch timeline, he's obviously, working for money or for whatever, but maybe he sees this, and I think he does see this as an opportunity, just like Vel wishes he had the opportunity to maybe befriend Tori Osalax. Tori Osalax sees it as a way to a way to maybe befriend Vel, and he maybe has regrets of his own as far as killing him goes, just like Vel does. So I thought that would be a really interesting mirror and a great way to sort of play with that moment, because while the ranch timeline is about sort of exploring what it means to be heroic by demonstrating how our characters would result if maybe they weren't heroic, it's sort of an interesting take on, like, well, say Vel had lost, like what sort of happens? Had that moment turned out differently, what does the mirror world look like? What does things look like through our dark lens where Vel had died instead of Tori Osalax? And how does that affect them? Oh, we're not in the sewers anymore. So I'll talk a little bit about my design for a couple of these things. The Vel Ghost, I've adapted the Banshee. I beefed up its AC and hit points a little bit more to take it from a CR4 to a CR7. But then I dropped it actually back down to its CR4 for the two of these guys. I just used the base Banshee in the book because I was nervous about killing them outright with a DC 15 whale versus a DC 13 whale. That's a big difference, especially for these guys, but they both failed it anyway. So yeah, 2 moments today where the characters really failed, and I think I'm sort of coming to a point where I'm ready to allow them to start to maybe feel the taste of death, because I've pulled a lot of punches, like letting them stabilize and not just be, killed by the Banshee and other things. There's been other situations where Christine was petrified back in season 2, and I sort of prevented that from happening. I'm sort of, I think, starting to get ready to the characters. There's enough characters, and there's enough they've had enough story that if some of their stories start to end in their death from doing either heroic things or stupid things, I'm starting to think that I'm ready to get to that point. I'm not saying that what they did today was stupid, but just that, like, maybe not pulling punches to just keep them alive, because we have a pretty large stable of characters now that we can start switching between. And one way to sort of turn over seats, and also, characters are going to behave differently once one of them goes down. And I think that's something that we definitely need to explore in Threshold, because it is a part of D&D, and it's going to happen eventually. I just hope I really need to make sure that it's a death that matters, rather than I don't want someone to just die against some mooks or some, just a random battle. So maybe I pulled my punches, but with the Banshee not killing the two of them, but I don't think it would kill them outright. Let's see. So I talked about this in Question, Comments, Concerns, but I'll touch on it again here. The symbol that banished Ka was a symbol of banishing. I've just adapted the symbol spell and a circle of banishing. Or just the spell banish. I think banish is a 4th level spell, so I just roped it in with the symbol. It's sort of a banish that sits there until it's ready, because I wanted there to be like a trap. I feel like that's the kind of thing that you'd be able to set as a wizard, or in Tori's case a sorcerer, just a trap to banish outsider things that are in there. We sort of see it with vampires not being able to have crosses or exorcisms, sort of banishing them back with the cross. I figured you could probably do that arcanely, and it sort of gives it makes a utility. It gives a spell utility to use it in a way that I kept wanting to use it when I was playing Feryx. I wanted to be able to, like, let's get rid of these ghosts. Like, isn't there a magic, but magic circle takes too long to put up and isn't really useful. So I thought that the symbol spell would be a good way to, like, have something, a back pocket, set up something so you can banish something later on, without really being too much of without really being too game breaking, I feel, anyway. I think it's still a 4th level spell. We didn't see Osalax in action. My original plan was for them to take care of the ghost and to meet him while they were leaving the little execution room kind of thing. I apologize that if a lot of my descriptions weren't as detailed as I would have liked them to be, but there was so much plot that I was trying to get through in this episode today because of all the different things that the characters wanted to do. So I was a little bit, I had to rush and railroad them a little bit just to get through it all, because I think we were at like an hour 45 and I wanted to be significantly shorter on this one. But it's good. There was a lot of good story. Let's see, what's the, what else is there to talk about? The battering ram was fun. I just thought if you're going to get a battering ram, let's get a nice one. Let's give them, rather than just like, up and we have a battering ram. Sometimes if you give an object like that, just a little tiny bit of detail, like that it's the gold goat 10,000, which off the top of my head, I wish I had something better prepared, but whatever. If you have something that just has that little bit of detail in it, they're going to remember it more. It's almost like a magic item that's non-magical. Now when they need to bust down a door, they're going to remember the battering ram, or the gold goat 10,000 is going to come back when Vel catapults it, or it's going to have some life to it because it has those tiny bit of details that it looks nice. It's something you can picture pretty. I mean, obviously enough for Pamela to draw it. Means they're going to remember it, just like Kaw's crossbow cup. Like the crossbow cup isn't as big of a deal when it's just a cup, but let me start the sentence over. If he just has a hand crossbow, it's not a big deal, but the crossbow cup is, again, sort of a gift that gives, because he can, surreptitiously be drinking it while aiming at someone, or there's all kinds of interesting things that can be done with it just by giving what would just a regular normal item just that tiny extra bit of detail. So maybe give that a try, instead of just saying, oh, yep, and you find a longsword, like you find a longsword with a purple blade with a rose down at the bottom of the pommel. Like suddenly that gives that character, even though it is rules-wise identical to the sword, and maybe not what that character necessarily wanted in a sword, it gives them that extra bit of, weird, I have this sort of weird thing to my character now. Like Christine with the shield that has the blood on it, or when she switched to a knottish steel sword because it was a better item. It wasn't the knottish steel axe that maybe her character concept would have wanted, that if she was just said, oh yeah, and pick a magic item that you want. I'll take a +1 great axe, please. It changed her character a lot to have the +1 sword, the knottish steel sword. And sort of changed her character, which I think is interesting to see growth. Let's see, we're going to go have a conversation with Kaw about how we're going to bring him back. I have a couple ideas for that. I'll go ahead and talk about him here. Jamie has a wish sword, a sword that grants wish. So that's a pretty big deal. So like worst case scenario, Jamie has a sword that allows him to wish things into existence or non-existence. Is basically a get out of jail free card for me. And Brian, I don't think will use it. Because I think I talked to him about it, and it's like, what does Jamie wish for? And it's like, oh, Jamie doesn't want to wish. He doesn't have something that he wants. He wants the power to be able to make something he wants. He wants the power of the potential wish, which is why it's in really safe hands. Whereas Christina would maybe say, like, I wish the devil army was gone. And it's like, oh, okay. Because she has a need and would maybe be willing to pull the trigger on that wish. Jamie Bryan, he likes having the potential to wish. And if you use the wish, then the potential is gone. And so you lose that power, essentially. It's a power you don't get back. I'm very, very excited. Let's see, I talked about the Velocilax. I let Rasper have the smoke bombs because I am trying to give Rasper a little bit more depth. He's been a very... pardon me. Rasper has been traditionally a bit more of a... we've sort of, unfortunately, sometimes put him in this category of being a brute, where Rasper is this dumb brute. And the truth is, Rasper isn't dumb. Rasper's very canny. Rasper was able to navigate his way through the Black Arrow Syndicate to get in the good graces of some very powerful people that were just unfortunately on the wrong side of a coup. So he is very canny. He does have a great deal of knowledge and experience, just he is street smart rather than book smart. He can't like look at an animal in the woods and tell you what animal he is, but he can tell you, that animal's dangerous, I know how to track it. He doesn't know that, this tower was built in the 1200s by the Arrow family. He knows that the interesting alleyways and seedy underbelly of the city that he's been to. So giving him the smoke bombs lets Rasper have a little bit more agency in that category, and gives him something to do other than smack things with a shovel. And again, part of this season for me is letting Rasper grow into a more heroic person, less of a dumb brute mercenary, you can pay me for whatever, into someone who's a little bit more moral, into someone who is a little bit more thinking. I think that this whole adventure has sort of changed the way that the players, I think, will tackle problems in the future, because this is sort of like a heist. They are really taking several sessions to examine, okay, what's the best way to go in and out, and how do we sort of do this? They still have not found the treasure room. There's a full-on treasure room that has just like 3 layers of vaults, and I really, really want them to get in there, because it could really help Merrington to have this money pile, but that just isn't something that they've been interested in yet. Even though we've made mention of that. There's 8 pairs of sending stones. There's 8 pairs of sending stones in there, because I want to give these guys some walkie-talkies. There's some really interesting things that are in there, and I want them to have it, as well as just more gold than they could ever want. How they're going to get it out of there, I have no idea. But something to think about. Let's see. I think that's everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. Just go ahead and comment below if you got any questions. I'd love to have a discussion more about the DMing side of this episode here. Please, if you haven't already, check out our Patreon. Again, it really means a lot for those of you who have given us even a dollar. You can set a cap on there if you didn't know that. If you're a little worried, like, oh, because we're per episode, it's like, oh, I don't want to do this per month. You can set what your monthly cap is at, which sort of means you say, I just want to, I'll give $1 per episode, but I only want to do, $3 per month. You can totally set that cap. Or if you say, I want to give $5 per episode, but I only want to give $10 per month, you can absolutely do that too. And anything, again, that you give it is immensely appreciated, because it lets us do things like these cameras, like the extra wall in the back, and we're getting ready to do sort of a new opening. We got a new theme song coming down the pipeline, so I'm really, really excited to share that with you guys. But it's only possible because of the Patreon money that you guys donate to help us make the show, because we this is our free time, my second unpaid job. So thank you guys very much for watching, for just talking to us on social media and all those places. We put everything to talk to us down in the comments. Check out the wiki, and the wiki's, well, check out the Patreon. I'm starting to put more stuff on the Patreon than the wiki for our subscribers. But thank you guys so much for watching. Afterwards, we will see you next week with another exciting episode of Threshold, which sounds like we might be finally storming the castle. And I will then, of course, see you for afterwards. Any questions, comments, concerns following that. Thank you so much, and see you soon.